Let's start off with having Michelle introduce herself.
Thanks, Dimitri. Good day, and thanks for having me. My name's Michelle Bonat. I'm really passionate about solving big, impactful problems in financial services using AI and data. My experience spans both hands-on coding for data science, AI, ML, software engineering, as well as managing large technical teams and leading strategic initiatives. And I have a track record of success creating and scaling large scale, both at places like Oracle where I ran financial web applications, and in a startup environment where at Data Simply I founded a company that mined legal documents for investment signals. I have a master's in finance from Kellogg. Currently, I'm the head of AI innovation at JPMorgan Chase, focused on the digital customer experience. And that means that I build, buy, and partner in very strategic, innovative AI ways to even make a better experience for our customers. And that's across both Chase Bank in the mass market with everything there, banking, investing, payment, credit cards, and all that, solutions for small business, and at JPMorgan for private banking and wealth management.
Okay, Mudassir, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Mudassir Azeemi. I'm currently working on a mission critical application at Wells Fargo, leading the interaction design effort for their commercial electronic office portal. And that portal is doing $13 trillion of transaction every year. And since we bought the design system on it, we are seeing $82 billion of money movement from a smartphone and from tablets. And also one more thing about me is I brought the Urdu language on Apple's 2 billion devices. So my whole idea is to bring the humane touch into the financial world. So that's me.
Okay. And Mary, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Mary Miras, and I am a vice president and currently the fair lending officer for Goldman Sachs Bank. I began my career in private practice at a large New York law firm, and joined Goldman, almost 5 years ago when they decided to build out their consumer businesses. And one of the, so I've been one of the architects of those businesses. And one of the things that my team and I focus on is ensuring that our digital strategies, that our models, and our product development, are all designed in ways that don't unintentionally discriminate against protected groups. So one of the things that I'm passionate about is ensuring that we develop products and services that provide value for our customers, and do it in a way that is as broadly available as possible.
Okay. And I'm Dimitri Bianco. I'm an associate director of model risk management. That means I do model validation. I've worked across a variety of different aspects on the risk side, doing model development, model validation, implementation, and internal audit. My specialty focuses around time series modeling. I've worked at PPNR, credit, and operational risks. And many of you know me from YouTube as well as Fancy Quant, trying to blend both those business sides as well as the technical skills. So just as a blanket statement here before we get kicked off, all four of us, these are going to be personal perspectives and not representations of our employers, but these will give you some insight into the banking industry. So Michael, if you want to flip us to the first slide here. The first question is going to be, what are the main areas we're interacting with customers? Michelle, you want to take this for us to start?
Sure, thanks, Dimitri. So this is my own perspective, as an employee at JPMorgan Chase. So let me lay the blanket for where I get that perspective. So JPMorgan Chase is the country's largest bank by revenue. And so we have a great opportunity to tackle really important opportunities and challenges related to AI, both on the resources and the amount of data. So we work with 12 billion tech spend a year and access to enormous amounts of data with relationships with about half of the US households, processing $6 trillion in payments every day. And in terms of the digital world, which I live in, the benefit of 53 million digitally active customers and 38 million mobile active customers. So, you know, from the perspective of a technologist, great tools and resources to work with. So in terms of where the main areas where AI is interacting with customers, I'll speak what I see some things our firm doing and what some things I see in the industry more broadly, and then some things that I'm particularly really excited about. So at JPMorgan Chase, already in production for AI, is things like fraud detection, trade execution, customized credit card offers, and many others, as are other institutions working in that. And when I think about it, I read something that captures it really well. So it's core, adjacent to core, and transformational as the way AI is being worked into banking or more broadly financial services. So core, at our firm, that's, banking, investing, credit cards, payment services. And then adjacent, I think of it as, new areas or developing new operating models using AI to enhance the experience, with those new areas. And I think of call center. So, there's work being done in call center to either categorize the tickets better, AI chats, things like that. And then from a transformational perspective, that really goes above and beyond, even beyond banking, into anything that is possible. So that's really everything else. Personally, I'm really excited about the uptake in NLP, natural language processing, in banking, because previously, we all came up mostly looking at numeric data, but, as is often said, the non-numeric data comprises likely 80% of all the data out there that we could use. And so, 80% has been largely untapped. And so as banks, financial institutions get more experience, more tools to leverage that unstructured data with NLP, I see that as a really exciting way to grow the efforts.
Anyone else want to jump in on this question here?
This is Mary. I would just add that I think Michelle's point about NLP is really well taken, right? I mean, I think that's one of the things, obviously, that AI and any sort of machine learning is most dependent on is data. And as she points out, there's just this huge amount of data that's been, to date untapped. And I think that potential there is really incredible.
Okay. Have you guys seen any issues with processing NLP? I know from a risk perspective, we're always concerned with data quality, customer interaction. Do you have good retention with that? Have you guys seen similar issues, or you guys have more of a clean set of data to work with?
I mean, NLP, the reality is if it was easy, everybody would do it, and it's not easy. So, data is data, text is text. Everyone has the same challenges, and, always we think it won't be 80% of the time doing data engineering cleanup, and then it always is, right? For financial institutions collectively, we all have those bigger layers of regulation, which, certainly we all adhere to. So it's, the inherent challenges and opportunities, right, are that NLP does have unstructured data to look at, but, then layer in all the ways that you get that working, and then all the possibilities to do that, and then, leverage it into deep learning and transfer learning and reinforcement learning and all the, cool new bells and whistles with the regulatory wrapper. So that is certainly the challenge, but certainly the opportunity as well.
I think that's a great point, because I think for a lot of people on the outside looking inside of banking, they always think we're very slow and behind the curve. But I think other industries like tech, where you have more excitement, there's a lot less regulation, where banks are definitely taking more of that cautious perspective on making sure that we're doing it correctly and safely for our customers.
True.
Okay. So let's go to the second question here, which is, how is AI enabling banks to provide a better user experience, driving both revenue and customer happiness? Mudassir, do you want to take this question to start?
Sure thing. Yeah, let's start with first, the basic tenet of AI. When we build the AI solution, right? So there are a couple of approaches we take. One is the prediction, second is classification, third is clustering and optimization. Now, if you talk about how we are enhancing the user experience of a banking customer through AI, then I believe that AI is becoming a new UI, right? Because it's kind of like now it is in the background. However, it's giving a customer certain kind of satisfaction. First of all, that somebody is actually taking my input and learning from my pattern, right? And then at the end of the day, what they are seeing is kind of like an enhanced experience, because somebody understood better than from the human aspect. Like, hey, look, I want this service, I want that service, but other services, I don't really need it, right? So these kind of approaches, when it comes into play from that aspect, they are actually enhancing user experiences. And there are a few more things I would say. They are as you said just a moment ago, people think from the outside banking industry is too slow because we have more laws, right? And that's actually create kind of like a frustration, kind of like a friction into experiences. However, because now those the machine learning tools and the insight that we are having more and more is actually reducing that friction. For example, I will give you my story. A month ago, couple of months ago, not a month ago, because when I was with my family in the mall, so I even though yes, I work at Wells Fargo, but I love their banking service as well, and I had it since for last 16 years. What happened? I swiped my ATM, debit card actually to the vending machine. It did not go through. Couple of times I did, and suddenly my kids were shouting out, and they were like, "Dad, we want to eat pretzel." When you go to mall, you eat pretzel, right? They were wreaking the havoc, and I was like, all right, let's go and grab it from the from the store. And I used the same card. It did not go through. I was perplexed. I was like, what's going on? I called my wife and say, hey, do we have money? She said, yeah. What are you talking about? And guess what? My card was blocked by the pattern was matched, because of the pattern matched inside the in the vending machine. Because here's the thing, here's a catch: vending machine was registered for another city. The location of that vending machine was registered as it's in some other city, like Union City, in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I was in Dublin. Now, because of this, insight that right, active insight on my data, on my pattern, that this guy, how can he be he's in I just used the gas station debit card on my gas station as well. So how he can be in 5 minutes inside in Dublin, and then suddenly it takes 40 minutes to be in Union City. So the Wells Fargo fraudulent system put a hold on my card, and then I have to call. And so this kind of it was frustrating at start, However, it was for my security. So I really appreciated, right, that this thing happened, and that made me the awesome. Again, yes, I work at Wells Fargo. Yes, disclaimer, but I don't want to leave them as a bank from from my day-to-day tasks. So this story tells you whole aspect of how the machine learning and the data and patterns that we are learning about customers are actually enhancing the experience, like contextual help, right? And also the products that we're not going to sell everything to them. We're going to sell only what matches with their pattern and with their lifestyle. So yeah, so that's it.
Yeah, that's very good. I mean, I've seen similar instances on my card where it's been stolen, and then all of a sudden stuff's getting purchased at like 2 in the morning. And I'm so thankful that the company that does my credit card, right, just stops it, and then they send you the notification, and they can track those patterns, and they're so accurate compared to what the alternative, which would be people, trying to manage this behind the scenes, which would just be a lot of effort and work. And then of course, things will slip through the cracks as well. So definitely an enhancement for AI in banking. So one more thing to point out here is just talking about how this is better enabled customer experience. I know a lot of people have used like charting. So I know Mudassir were talking a little bit about this before the call, but even for like a personal consumer perspective, right? It's nice to see all of your breakout on your spending, like where is it being spent? What categories does it go in? I was definitely someone before all the technology that was in Excel, building my own little charts and everything. And of course, that's not realistic for consumers and customers to do on their own free time. And the bank can't obviously allocate
building the charts on your phone, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So definitely big advancements. And I think a lot of just the simple, nice to have touches, but definitely without AI, there'd be no way that we could actually implement a lot of this technology.
Exactly.
Yeah, so when I think about this, it's really tempting as a technologist to approach it from that perspective. What really advanced technology can we bring in? Should I add another hidden layer in my deep learning, debate whether the activation function should be RailU or linear or something else, and right. So we all love bringing in the advanced technology because we're technologists and it's fun. But when I think about it, it's really important to stay grounded in the customer experience and solving a customer problem and making that experience even better. And one way I think about one opportunity is through personalization, which is a bit of what we've all been talking about. So Dimitri, what you want is different from what Mary wants, right? And so with the maturation of the 5G networks plus 5G enabled devices, combined with real-time AI, that will bring us to the realization of, personalization and, even drawing that to mobile.
Exactly. It's all like depend on, and also a very perfect contextual personalized help and all the product and services offered.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I don't get bombarded with tons of other brochure. Right. I don't need it.
Yeah,
I mean, what I need when I need it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think customization is key, right? It's like the ability to like take these types of products and services and really kind of scale your customer engagement from beginning to end. I mean, it really presents incredible abilities to really kind of look at your customer holistically and see what their journey's like, and to present them with highly tailored options as they kind of evolve throughout their financial life. I think that, and then just in basic brass tacks, I think one of the areas where this really creates a better user experience and can really drive upside for your revenue is reducing some of the inefficiencies with having to rely on good old-fashioned call centers, right, to solve customer problems. Being able to the point that you made earlier, to get out in front of these types of problems and deal with them at the front end, it frees up those types of interactions to deal with something where maybe AI, at least in its current state, isn't best suited to handle a customer's issue, and they really do need to talk to a human being. But I think it kind of frees everyone up on both sides and really can eliminate some of the frustrations from
Exactly.
some of those interactions.
Right. For
And
sure.
one more thing, the AI, so customer don't need to learn any new, way to interact, right? It's kind of like weaving into their life pattern, just like the voice UI is right now. Like my kiddos, right? They're like, "Hey Google, what's the temperature today?" And
Right.
my little one is, "Hey Google, can you play Peppa Pig?" Right? So it's so natural for them to interact at this age. So the process, the experience that we are bringing into the banking industry, we're not gonna learn or teach somebody the complex, things going on with my mortgage application. So I think the influx of AI products into our financial world is actually simplifying lots of gnarly issues that sometime customer faces when they're filing the form.
I think that's a perfect segue here into our next question. So our next question is, trust and AI don't always go hand in hand. How do you ensure that customers continue to have a trusting relationship with their bank when many of their touch points are actually with an AI? Is measuring trust the same tracking customer churn or other retention metrics? So Mary, do you want to start us off with
Sure.
this discussion?
Sure. I mean, when I think about, your question is measuring trust the same as tracking churn? Well, I don't think so. I mean, I think reducing customer attrition addresses churn, right? But, trust implies something more than that. And I think this is where sort of customization and other things come into play, because it's when you develop a relationship with a customer, and you're facilitating trust, you're providing more than just the least bad options when it comes to financial services. I think that it allows you to develop products and services that deliver real value to your specific consumer, and throughout their life cycle. You want to ensure that customers continue to trust their FIs, and in doing that, it's important to really take a holistic view of the customer throughout their journey. And it's, I think, critical to understanding that what you're delivering is of value to them at any particular time, and the services that you have deliver, an impact, a positive impact, to their overall well-being. A poor performing product or service can have a very significant impact on your customers holistically, and that's, those aren't, they might continue to maintain their relationship with you, but it's not necessarily delivering what the types of interactions that build that sort of deeper relationship.
Right. And I think to add to that too, is it's important as banks are moving, we're seeing not just a random shock of technology here. For example, like depositing a check on your phone, right? We have other customers that might not be comfortable utilizing a lot of the automated services. And so I think it's important that banks have taken a cautious approach here of allowing customers to still go into like branches and do it the traditional way. But then yes, we're definitely slowly moving across to more advanced methods that save on costs and customer service and customized products.
Yeah, and I think this is also where transparency comes in, right? I think if you can develop products and services that are straightforward, and communicate the features of those products and services in a way that your average consumer can understand without having to go Google terms and phrases to understand what it is that they're getting into. Those are the types of things that I think put everyone at ease.
Right. And I think too, it's important when we're looking at metrics here, right? Like you're mentioning, not just looking at one number, but kind of getting a broader perspective, is also looking at segmentation of different parts of your customer base as well.
Yeah, I think that's key. What's right for customer A isn't right for customer B, and that's really it's important to really look at them holistically.
Yeah, to add to that, in my view, trust, particularly with financial institutions, is so important. That needs to be built before, maybe even before any AI is added in, right? So you need to get your customer to trust you and, get that solid, and then add the advanced technology. And, trust is really built for that trust relationship is built when you're there for your customers when they need it most. And so I look at, the example of now the pandemic with COVID-19, and helping people manage their finances. And so, examining that and developing new solutions to help all of us, particularly those most impacted by the pandemic. So I'm really proud to say that JPMorgan Chase was ranked first among banks in the recent assessment by Forbes of the 100 largest US companies' responses to the pandemic. And I really salute my colleagues who've put in such a tremendous effort, amazing to put in those changes. And I'm glad that it helped our customers. And other learnings I'll add is studies have shown that people trust AI more. To draft off Mary's comment, people trust AI more when it is transparent. So in studies, it's been shown that if you, side by side, if you show the results of a, say, algorithm result together with maybe some inputs that it took and displayed that, people respond better to knowing what the inputs are and what it's doing. And then they actually often respond better in some cases to being able to participate in that process and increase the trust by being part of that process by perhaps, even putting in more information than might even be needed to then get to that result. So being transparent about what's going on, including them in the process, studies have shown increases trust where
Right.
AI is used.
And I think COVID-19 in general has been a good push for a lot of the smaller banks. So I know all of us are from large banks here. We provide a lot of services, but I have seen a lot of the regional and even local banks where they might not have had as much online services for their customers. And now all of a sudden they're thinking, we can't wait any longer. We definitely need to jump in and start providing these services due to the pandemic. But of course, it will help advance, I think, the industry as a whole.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting time, right? It's really sort of accelerated. I think people's movement to using strictly digital applications. I think there's always been pockets that have been more reticent than others, and this has really been an opportunity for people to kind of take that step that they may have otherwise been uncomfortable with. To the points that were made earlier. No one likes feeling forced into those interactions. And so having, more traditional modes of interaction have always been important, but I think, current state is really emphasizing, what this can look like.
Right. All right. And Michael, if you want to switch us here to the final question. The last question here is, what is the future of AI-enabled banking? So I'll kick this one off here. I think as we've all kind of pointed out, I think there's really two parts to this. The first one is like that nice seamless AI where the customer just gets faster response time, more convenience, but they don't even know it's AI. It's just their usual daily routine. It just happens seamlessly. And then I think the second feature, which has been pointed out, more has to do with the customization and new features and providing new services and products that banks could not basically supply in the past due to restrictions on cost and other hurdles. But I think in general, I think that's where I see a lot of this AI going, is that we're going to continue to try to find more applications for seamless integration, and then also trying to find out new features and benefits the customers have. What do you guys think about that?
I will go first. AI is not going to replace us, first of all, right? It's going to be kind of like, for me, as a banking industry, especially if I'm talking in the bank, it's kind of like an Iron Man. So Iron Man suits, right? So Iron Man suits cannot exist without Robert Downey Jr., right? So it's kind of, that's the analogy. So they go both hand in hand. We are not building any Skynet, not yet. We are not there yet. All right, it will take some more ages or more millennia. But we are building something like, Iron Man suit for us. So help us in times of, trouble, or also enhance the experience to fight the fraud.
Well, I like the movie references.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think customization is key. I'd also really like to see, more movement on the lending and the credit side of the house. I think that there's a lot of potential to open up AI technologies and machine learning with regard to, extending credit to thin file and the historically underbanked, and what we really need in that particular space is more regulatory guidance on explainability and transparency and what the expectations are around that. To Michelle's point earlier, banks are always a little bit more conservative in certain areas because we are highly regulated, and so I think if we're a little bit more front-footed about thinking through some of these things, and I think it really opens up a lot of opportunities.
Yeah, those are thoughtful comments. Thank you. In my view, the future of AI in banking actually goes far beyond banking. So it doesn't even look like a bank. It doesn't even look like something we may have been recognized would come from a bank. And I think about examples from other industries, like, for example, driverless cars, right? Once I tell my car where to go, I want it to get me there safely and quickly. And then as I'm driving along, if I veer outside my lane, well, speaking for a friend changes the radio station, automatically put me back in my lane if I told you it's okay to do that, right? So as a bank, give me driverless banking, right? I've told you where I want to go. I've told you my financial goals. Get me there as optimally as possible. And if I veer out of my, financial lane, self-correct me if I've told you that that's okay. Do it for me. Help me enhance my life. Help me meet my goals. And so in my view, in the future banks, using AI can help all of us in ways that today we may not even have thought was possible.
I think that's very well said. Michael, do you want us to jump in here to the Q&A part as I'm seeing questions pop up on the bottom?
Yeah, we have a bunch of questions. So you all crushed it. So thank you very much for that. And now let's see how many people we can answer. So we have some in the chat and some in the Q&A, of course. Here's a rather specific one, but I'm interested in it. To what extent are banks utilizing audio to text solutions to assist with better data analytics? And then also just beyond data analytics, is audio to text a big part of your banking lives these days?
I guess I'll start. So I can say yes, audio to text is being utilized internally. The project specifics, though, are somewhat proprietary to the bank. But I think, as many people have pointed out here, NLP is one of these hot topics where we're all kind of diving in and figuring out exactly how to utilize it. But yes, bank-wide, I have seen internally at the bank I'm working at, as well as other banks.
All right, so yes. Right. This is interesting. So on the customer engagement front, someone asks, can customer engagement AI models, lead banks to geolocation or next best offers in real time? Which we touched a little bit on, but yeah, dig a little deeper into like, what does the engagement look like? And can it be, like, are you hitting people based on location, or in just next best offer, which is all the rage these days?
So I don't know if anyone's going to jump in on this one, but as far as I know, no, they're not using live feed data for this. I believe there's quite a few regulations that prevent banks from querying and pulling, for example, like your geolocations. The data sources we use are all very static, at least at the current time.
Got it. Oh, that's interesting. So banks, you're unable to use like any sort of alternative data pieces from the marketing component, but then on the lending side, you are able to use alternative data pieces, yes?
We are not. We use traditional data. I think it depends too on country. So the US has very strict regulations. I know if you go to other countries abroad, a lot of them are experimenting with social data from like social media streams and whatnot. But for any of the banks I've worked at or worked with, we are not using anything that's like dynamic or outside of the realm.
Got it. Any other thoughts on alt data for banks?
I think it's a really interesting, it's a really interesting space. And this goes back to the comment I made earlier about, the underbanked or people who have what we would refer to as thin files or, very limited, a limited credit history. I think alternative data can be incredibly useful, but we have to be smart about, how we use it and ensuring that when you're using something that doesn't have on its face a necessarily objective relationship to creditworthiness, that you've done your diligence to ensure that it does. Simply looking at a factor, using a variable or some sort of alternative data that wouldn't necessarily, when you just look at it, you may not necessarily assume that it relates to creditworthiness. I think that carries a lot of risks. I think it could potentially carry a lot of rewards, but you've got to be really thoughtful about your approach and ensuring that you meet your regulatory obligations.
And I think it should be pointed out in general for banking. So tech is very run by the seat of your pants kind of industry. Banks spend a lot of time and a lot of what we do, even on a model development and validation standpoint, we actually do bring in legal staff at times, and they have to go through both what we're using in data. And so we try to stay very within our confines of what data we can and can't use. And then of course we have all their expertise coming in saying, this would be murky, so we just will avoid it. And then as Mary's pointed out, it'd be great though if we could slowly make progress as an industry to figure out what would be morally and ethically correct, what can we use and what can't we use.
Cool. Time will figure that out for us. Here's a good question that just came in, which hopefully falls into one of your wheelhouses. How do you believe AI will impact Treasury solutions, liquidity management, cross-border payments, trade finance, etc.?
I can jump on this in a little bit as well. So I don't specifically work in Treasury at a bank, but I did work as corporate finance at a startup firm for a while. I think the business side itself has a vast amount of work that can be automated, but I think there's definitely a pushback from a lot of different departments on how do we implement it correctly, how do we ensure quality, especially when it comes to like treasury management. We don't want to be kind of just going off the seat of our pants with it. But I think for transferring in funds, even like fraud detection, making sure that when you're transacting across borders, that we can check the identity of the other party. So more like a fraud detection metric as well. But definitely there could be some enhancements in the treasury side.
Cool. Thanks, Dimitri.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts there? All right, cool. I have one more, which I think will be good. And it's around fintechs. So, fintechs are becoming ubiquitous, and they're all AI driven, totally digital, totally different cost structure, obviously, than banks. How are you guys and your banks just approaching the fintech ecosystem in general? Yeah.
Well, I could say, for Goldman, it was because we didn't have any legacy, branches or other brick and mortar locations. The looking at sort of how the fintechs were operating was something that we realized we could do, and sort of that was part of the inspiration for moving into the consumer space. So I obviously think that that shift coupled with some of the acceleration that we've seen as a result of COVID really kind of makes that space all the more compelling. But we're admittedly in a little bit of a different position from some of the institutions with much larger retail footprints.
So yeah. I'll add to that a little bit here. So fintech is interesting, but I think one of the key points that the vast majority of the tech industry, which is fintech, misses is the amount of resources, including money, people, knowledge, expertise, to navigate the regulatory requirements of banks is massive. So I see a lot of these fintechs as like incubators. They're great ideas. We want you to be cutting edge and try new things. And I've seen a lot of banks will then move in and kind of take over and buy out these smaller fintech ideas. And then the bank, of course, can leverage its expertise on how do we implement that and how do we get through all these regulations while maintaining safety in the banking industry.
I will add one more thing here. FinTech is actually a mindset, right? When we talk about FinTech, it's actually a banking or financial sector startup, right? So at Wells Fargo, we are adopting that kind of mindset by having our own incubator, right? A FinTech incubator in-house. And also, we are having our own innovation track going on. Even like, anybody can participate, and there's a whole environment there, like, fostering that kind of mindset within the enterprise, gonna have more impact, as Dimitri says, because if a fintech coming from the outside world, like, hey, I like this idea, let's bring it on, but they don't know the depth and the complexities involved with the banking industry, is like, it's a hard-earned knowledge, right? And still we have the government, and we have to follow the rules, right? So that's why it's very interesting that they are coming in, but bringing that mindset, they need to like partner up with the big banks actually. So work together, right? Hand in hand, because we are all working for our customers and their financial services need.
Exactly, I agree with that. So another way to do it is, in my example, I'm a former fintech founder, and now I work for a large financial institution. And so bringing that fintech approach, mentality into a very large bank, can make magic happen, right? And so the key in my mind is really having not just me, but the team and, the institution. How can you think like a founder? What does that mean? How can you look at a challenge as an opportunity and break barriers where, maybe every time it's already been done before, there's 20 steps and that takes 2 years, but we don't have 2 years. How can we get it done faster, right? And be high quality and be a great customer experience. It's not a no, it's how can we make it happen? What is the yes, right? And the power of bringing those two together is very, very incredible.
Awesome. I love it. So the fintech ethos makes its way into the big banks is what I'm hearing. I think that's awesome. All right. And so with that, we're a few minutes past. I'm going to call it. Thank you to the four of you so much. I think this was an awesome conversation, and you guys each crushed it in your own unique way, which is all I can ask for in a panel. So virtual claps for our four leaders here, and thank you so much for being here. I'm Michael Weiss. Anyone can email me at michael@ai4.io with any thoughts about AI or anything else. And yeah, thank you to the four of you. Thanks so much.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.
I appreciate
Thanks
it.
for having me.